Hey guys, I'm recording from outside today because it's actually a beautiful sunny day and it stopped raining. Yay! So, um, what I realized about myself as an INFJ is that when I get a good idea, it's almost as if I need to implement it immediately. I don't know if it's that SE child working with my NI, but I need to like implement that idea immediately or tell it to somebody. And I get this like really sharp pain in my heart if I'm not able to do that. Um, and usually it's as if I know that if I don't do it then and there, um, I'm gonna get faded. Just and it's not gonna seem so cool to me anymore. Like for example, I was so excited about doing this virtue and vice broadcast the other day, and first like it was like plans just got interrupted because we needed to leave, and then we came home late, so I wasn't able to do it. Then after that my internet stopped working, so it was just like so many outside um, influences that were just, you know, external circumstances that were preventing me from getting it done. And afterwards, like the next day, I just like felt less like doing it, and less and less and less and less. But I also want to be one of those follow through people. So, and I mean, it would be just such a waste because I've thought so much about this, and I've written so much about it. So I thought, let me just record it, yeah, sitting outside on my phone, because nothing's gonna happen then. I'm not gonna just get rudely disconnected. Okay, so this is me speaking about the virtues and the vices of each of the types, each of the 16 personality types. And this is a theory that I got from C.S. Joseph, another YouTuber, a great YouTuber. He does videos about human nature and human nurture. And he is the only person I've seen really with this kind of series. Um, I will link to him in the description so you guys can definitely check him out because he's really, really good at what he talks about. If you want to get like deep into depth psychology, and yeah, he's got quite a unique take on it as well. So, yeah, like the virtue and vice. I really like the idea of this because it sort of describes the extremes that the types can go to. They like the extreme them at their extreme virtuous, and then them with their lack of virtue, which is what a vice is. So yeah, I firstly thought that it would be important to define the terms virtue and vice before I even get into like how the types use it. And the best definition that I've found is basically a virtue is a positive quality of character that a person can possess that leads to their happiness and the happiness of others. And a vice is any negative quality that can be found in one's character that does not lead to happiness. So, but simply put, a vice is the absence of virtue. Then I found another definition that's really great, and that one is that a virtue can be defined as moral excellence, whereas a vice can be defined as fault considered to be immoral. So it is any positive quality in someone's character that we perceive that leads to theirs and others' happiness. And yeah, I think when we're at our best is when we're just definitely displaying our virtues, and when we're not so much at our best or a little bit depleted is when we start to display our vices. And of course, not all. Not, of course, these virtues and these vices can be displayed by each and every personality type, but these seem to be the preferred ones, the ones that each type sort of defaults to the most. And it can be the biggest strength, I guess, in knowing this. I think it's very useful because it shows us like what we're like, um, and and what people admire the most about us. So it's definitely it gives us insight into what our strengths are, and insight into what others might perceive as being immoral. So that's some really important information. Um, so once we know what is considered to be virtuous by the people around us, or by the world, and according to us, then we can choose to behave in ways that are more aligned with what is considered to be virtuous. Um, So although these do overlap, and of course certain similar types do to some degree share the same virtues and vices, they are these specific ones, and I thought they were extremely accurate and informative and very, very useful. So thank you, C.S. Joseph, for these amazing metaphysical concepts. So let's get straight into it then with the types. I'm not going to get deep into it, I'm just going to go over it, and I would like you guys to comment and let me know what you think about this and whether it has helped you in any way, whether you relate or whether you disagree. Because if you disagree, you probably got the wrong type. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so let's start with the INFP personality. Those introverted, intuitive, feeler perceivers. So the INFP, their virtue is loyalty, and their vice is treachery. So they can be the most virtuous of all, I mean, the most loyal of all the types. They are loyal to their ideas, they're loyal to their pursuits, they're loyal to the people, the specific people in their lives, no matter, like, almost to the point, almost to a fault. And it's sad that sometimes they get pushed so hard that they fall into treachery. So INFPs, do comment, let me know what you think of this, because I thought this was very informative when I read it about it, and when I heard it, because I didn't know this about you guys. Moving on to the ENFP. The ENFP's virtue is charity, and their vice would be depravity. So charity is wanting to give, is wanting to help with what you have, I'm guessing, and depravity is the I'm sure I'm not sure if my definitions are right, but the way that I understand depravity is a sense of lack, a feeling of lack, and a feeling that resources need to be hoarded somehow. So when ENFPs are virtuous, they are super charitable. They just want to help. They just want to give their stuff away that they don't use. They just want to save the world, basically. And then they go to the other extreme of their vice sometimes, which is depravity, like holding everything for themselves, I guess. And that's where that if I parent would come out, I guess. But yeah, you ENFPs, let me know if I'm right or wrong. Followed by the INTP, the architects. Their virtue is attentiveness versus their vice, apathy. I can totally see this, though, because INTPs are also, being introverts, they also seem to be only want to focus in on like one thing at a time. So they also don't like having many relationships, and when they're in a relationship, they sort of they just put all their attention into that one person. And when they're excited about a project, they are super attentive. They do that. They do this all the time. They are so attentive. They just learn and learn and learn information, and just are brilliant in that way. And I guess when they're not at their best, they just probably have no interest in learning anything new, and just sort of blocked off in a kind of like a TI-SI loop of some sort. An unhealthy TI-SI loop where they're just looking at, oh, it's not going to work out because it hasn't worked out before. I can totally see that. But yeah, I'd like to hear from the INTPs. What do you think? Followed by the ENTP. And the ENTP, their virtue is sincerity versus their vice is insincerity. Makes sense, doesn't it? ENTPs are really, really good at using words uh, to persuade people, to debate. They're very good at debating. They're very good at arguing for themselves and negotiating for themselves. So this could make it very easy for them to be insincere, I guess. But because they value truth, and because they value honesty so much, their biggest virtue would be sincerity, because they try to uphold that. They also are, they know how easily they can be insincere, and that's probably why they value the truth so much. So yeah, that's the virtue and vice of the ENTPs. So ENTPs, come on, be sincere, and that's what we love you for. Come on, and uh, just yeah, lead by example in that way, and you'll see more of that in your world reflected. And moving on to the INTJ now, the INTJ, the mastermind. um, their virtue is trust versus their vice is paranoia. So I guess that's why INTJs can be so into conspiracy theories. Uh, Once again, these are introverts, so I guess they would be, because they're so good at picking up patterns with their NI, first of all, but then they want to take those patterns and implement them in the world using TE and FI and via FI, and then of course through the SE, they just want to actually have them um, realized in the real world, have these ideas. And they use this pattern recognition, and then sometimes they pick up on a lot of different patterns that make a lot of sense, and some that really don't. And they're very like they can trust a certain idea and a concept about the future so much. So they can also get really paranoid about certain inconsistencies of patterns. With TE especially, it's like if something's not going to work, they can get like really paranoid if they're in their vice. So yeah, let's keep the INTJs. Let's not break the trust of the INTJ. And INTJs, just learn to trust. Trust that it's all going to work out. Your intuition is good, and you will always find a way to implement it if you keep focused and don't give in to that paranoia. Maybe have some calming tea or something. Yeah. And then moving on, the ENTJ. The ENTJs, surprisingly, to my surprise, their virtue is altruism, versus their vice is avarice. So, these are definitely two extremes for the ENTJ, and I can sort of see that, because I've met mostly very balanced ENTJs, or maybe I just didn't ever get close enough to an ENTJ to get to know them on such a level. But yes, they can be very altruistic. They can be very giving. They can be very giving of themselves, of their time, of their resources, teaching people, and just giving. And I guess when they've given and given and given, and then they're not appreciated, or nothing is returned, or nobody sticks to their word, or actually does anything with what they've given them. Like I've seen so many ENTJs invest so much money, time in other people, and like really hoping to help them get on their feet, and then they're just constantly failing and failing and failing. And so I can see how that can cause the ENTJ to get into their vice of avarice. But yeah, we love you ENTJs, and you're being altruistic, and we need you to be altruistic. So yeah, but do let me know if this relates to you, ENTJs, if you're listening. I know there's mostly INFJs listening here, but it's also very useful to know about others, because knowing someone's virtue and their vice, we can sort of understand what these people value as well, and what we can sort of avoid certain situations of leading them into not being virtuous towards us. So remember, everybody's different. Everybody's map of the world is just as relevant, and it is just as real to them as yours is to you. Okay, let's respect each other's maps. Moving on to the the INFJ, the INFJ personality type. So this was also quite insightful for me, because I'm an INFJ, and according to C.S. Joseph, the INFJ's biggest virtue is integrity. So I've been looking for different, and their vice, our vice, is corruption. So It's very interesting how these concepts are almost polar to our functions, because I mean, I have in my fifth slot, I've got introverted feeling, which is FI, and I feel like that's like this critical parent in the back of my head that's constantly judging me for being inauthentic, you know. Sorry, in my sixth slot is my critical parent. Um, my fifth slot would be NE, and I feel like this is reversed because that's sort of our sixth function. To please our sixth function is sort of what we seek. So um, we definitely utilize those shadow functions, even if that's an away from kind of way of using them. They definitely do come into play. I am excited to learn these more on a more deep level and actually like really have a full understanding of this. I don't think this is a subject I'll ever stop learning about. So, yay. Um, so yes, integrity would be for the INFJ super important, to stay true to ourselves and to stay true to the visions that we had. Like, I guess for me as an INFJ, what's most painful is like realizing that I saw things one way and I was so sure, and I had so much willpower and determination towards that ideal, or that like I really thought that I'd be more ahead in life by the age of 25, for example, and oftentimes I sit around regretting that. And corruption being the vice of the INFJ is definitely true, because I mean, corruption is a lack of integrity. It's a lack of that integrity that I would think would be authenticity, which I see in the INFP quite often. That's not giving in to peer pressure, not going for the low hanging fruit. Um, is being patient enough to wait for the right people to come along, as opposed to just going along with anybody for the sake of understanding. And we INFJs do tend to do that, and just to understand people to because we've got a very bad blurred lines of between good and what's good and bad. um, I think they call them boundaries. uh, we have like very bad, if no boundaries whatsoever, and that does come from a desire to understand both sides and to sort of get a holistic view of everything. Moving on to the ENFJ. And the ENFJ's virtue is um, benevolence versus cruelty. And I can understand how I've seen how ENFJs are definitely benevolent, in the sense that they just will have the most mercy on people. They will forgive and forgive and forgive, and they will like yes, they're all for justice, but they're all for mercy as well. They feel they really understand people's motives, and they understand why someone would do something, and so they tend to have that ability to stay benevolent. mm, but if that gets taken to the extreme and gets thoroughly abused, or if they've been manipulated for that too many times, I guess that's when the cruelty can come out, and it can get pretty cruel. Yeah, it can get pretty cruel. So you don't wanna get the ENFJ's bad side like that. And this was useful for me finding out. I had no idea. And I had made some ENFJ enemies very quickly because I didn't realize those, amongst other things. And now moving on though to the sensor types. Let's talk about the sensor types. So starting with the ISFP, their virtue is diligence versus their vice is idleness. My mother's an ISFP, and so I can totally see that. I can see how she can be so in the details, in the moment, just so eager to finish what she's doing and focused and loving it, absolutely loving it. There's nobody that can stick to a job and carry on with such diligence like the ISFP. Um, and I've also seen my mom and other ISFPs when they are not in their healthiest state, or when life's kind of got them down. that is when they tend to like really stay idle. Like they, I guess, as introverts, they would stay trapped in an fi, sort of like, what is it, fiti loop. uh I apologize, that's what I'm trying to remember now. It would be an fi loop of trying to predict the future based on what values to you, and you sort of don't want to move from that until you feel like you've got it right, and you have to get out there and into the outside world for that. So yeah, um, diligence versus idleness. Do not stay idle, ISFPs. We need you to stay diligent and inspire us all. Moving on to the ESFP now. The ESFP, their virtue is delayed gratification, and their vice is instant gratification. And there's just no denying this. I have seen this time and time again with ESFPs who sometimes get a little bit into addictive tendencies. They can be like heavy adrenaline junkies. They can, because of their lack of patience and desire to get things done like here and now, they sometimes just like they want to do it now so badly that they end up breaking it. You know, they want to fix something now so badly that they end up breaking it. And if they can put money away for the future, ESFPs, if you can put some money away for your future, that is a sign that you're healthy. So in a healthy ESFP is planning ahead, is thinking about tomorrow, is delaying their pleasure for bigger things, so that they can be happy and have that pleasure at a later time. So yeah, I think that's quite accurate. The ISTP. The ISTP's virtue is joy versus melancholy. And you can sort of see that. I also didn't really think about it that way until because I've dated quite a few ISTPs. Yeah, they've helped me with my mechanical aptitude for sure. Taught me how to use tools because my dad didn't. But basically, they are very joyous. It's like they they sometimes might seem cold and distant, but that's only because you're probably either boring them, and talking about things they don't want to talk about, or you are like not presenting what you are talking about, or in a fun way. They believe that life is all about. They are such thrill seekers, and they're not worried about dying. They're probably going to be the ones rescuing you. So don't be telling them to not enjoy life, or to listen to you, and don't try and change them, because these people will just go find another place to be joyous. Because when ISTPs are not in their virtue of joy, they have this melancholy where they just like sit around and do nothing, and think and think and think and think and think and watch like TV and not express their feelings at all. And it's not a nice place for ISTP. We want them to joyously work on fixing their tools and flying their planes, and yeah. Moving on to the ESTP, the alpha males, usually. The ESTPs, I found this one to be so funny, guys. So the ESTP's biggest virtue is chastity versus their vice is nymphomania. This is hilarious, but it's quite innocent as well. It shows they're great people all around, except for the fact that they can be a little bit nymphomaniac sometimes, and I don't see how this could be a vice. I also see how both can, when taken to extremes, can be. I mean, chastity can be a vice too, and nymphomania can be a virtue. Depends on which context. So don't go to those extremes. Just remain kind of balanced, ESTPs. That's all I can say. The ISTJ now. Moving on to the ISTJ. Their virtue is objectivity versus triviality is their vice. So yeah, that's amazing. I can totally see that. I mean, you wouldn't think that if you read a normal ISTJ profile. They just sound so boring, and so like focused on the details, like as if they have blinders on. But they actually can be pretty objective, because they are always, what they're doing is what they should be doing, and what they should be doing was told to them before they started doing what they're doing, and so they know what they're doing, so they're able to keep that result, that big picture, and in mind, in order to remain effective, to remain dutiful, and to have a practical routine that allows them to carry through everything that they everything in the way that they want to, which is the way that it should be done, the way that it's always been done. And yeah, I guess the opposite of objectivity, when they kind of lose touch with that, is when they can get pretty trivial. And I've seen that as well. They can really like pick up on, like, because they're supervisors, right? So they tend to pick up on just the most trivial of things that you've done wrong, and then just go on and on and on about that instead of focusing on the bigger picture. So moving on now to the ESTJ. Let me stop going on about my father. The ESTJ, their virtue is serenity versus chaos. And we all know how much ESTJs love their order. I mean, ESTJs are the commanders. They are the types that are always putting everybody in order. They are like almost military style, they like to put resources in the right hands, and they are just ruthless in business. So they probably, the reason that they go for that order is so that they can have that sense of serenity. And they do when I see a healthy ESTJ, I definitely feel kind of calmed and serene, because I know everything's taken care of. I know that the dishes have been done, the house is clean. If it isn't, I know what my role is, I know what I need to do. So yeah, I've seen a lot of ESTJs create that kind of environment for themselves through that order. And yeah, when I can't imagine, I've never seen, I'm lucky enough to not have ever seen a chaotic ESTJ, but I guess that would be the advice. Moving on now to the ISFJ type. ISFJ, those lovely, kind Mother Teresa types. So their virtue is faith, and their vice would be fear. So these are the most faithful types of all. They are faithful to their partners. They're faithful to their children. They are so nurturing and kind. They are faithful to their pursuits. They always do what they should do, and that's because they have faith. It's like when an ISFJ believes in something, they will do whatever it takes to make sure that that is well taken care of, and that they do everything in their power to embrace that faith, and to display that faith. And I can see how their vice would be a sense of fear, because maybe they're lacking faith in something. Maybe they had faith in something in the past, and it's kind of disappointed them, and that would make it really difficult for them. So yeah, ISFJs, we need you to have faith. And lastly, because this video is getting a bit long as well, I would like to speak about the ESFJ. The ESFJs lead FE types. Their virtue is caregiving versus caretaking. And that's quite interesting, because they lead with FE, which is harmony. So they are always, and they love it. They absolutely love to socialize, and to check up on people, and to help people, and to make sure that everybody is feeling good always. They are big into ethics, and also big, the way that their FE plays out is not the same as like the ENFJ, who is focused on people, but then uses advice and preaching and insight in order to motivate people. The ESFJ is more giving in, and makes people feel good through gifts, through baking cakes, through acts of kindness, and through just remembering their birthdays. And because they use introverted sensing as the tool function that they can display their FE through. And so They're very good at caregiving. They just care for everybody. And I guess if that's taken to the extreme, they will just fall sick, and then it's just caretaking. They have to go and get it from you, or kind of bully you into it or something. I'm not sure if I got that one right. So yeah, I'd love for you guys to comment, please, if you liked this video, and subscribe to my channel, give it a like. And if you're interested in finding out your personality type, you can check out my website, personalitycoach.co.za, link in the description. And yeah, you can take the test, it's on the homepage, and also check out my typing services as well as my self-actualization coaching services. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you guys soon.